Inside the stories that affect you. This is Inside KELOLAND.
Good evening and welcome to Inside KELOLAND. We vote them into office to represent us in the nation's capital, but it's rare that we get to see what a day entails for our congressional delegation. I recently visited Washington, D.C. to visit with Senators John Thune and Mike Rounds, as well as Congressman Dusty Johnson. Tonight, I share the stories that I, along with photojournalist Kevin Kiergaard, put together during our real quick trip. We start first with one of the most powerful politicians in Washington, D.C. Senator John Thune slowly climbed the ranks in the Republican Party after defeating Senate Majority Leader Tom Daschle back in 2004. And now he is the Majority Whip in the Senate, making him among the highest-ranking Republican senators. Senator John Thune rarely has any downtime when he's in Washington, D.C.
Not around here much. You know, if I have free time, it's probably earlier in the morning, and that's when I get up and kind of hit the trail, take a run, or hit the gym.
We caught up with Senator Thune at his Dirksen office around 9 o'clock in the morning. It was a brief meeting because, as a member of the tax-writing Senate Finance Committee, he had to speak on the Senate floor on how tax reform has benefited the American people. Thune has introduced 6 tax reform bills this year.
Hey guys, how's it going?
At 10 a.m., he rushed back to his Dirksen office to meet with South Dakota soybean growers.
We're going to file it by noon? Yeah.
At 10:30, Thune had to attend his Finance Committee hearing. Then quickly darted out of there to attend a Commerce Committee hearing. Then it was back to the Senate floor to cast 3 votes on different pieces of legislation. At 11 a.m., he stopped by the Capitol steps to meet and greet students from Brandon Valley High School who were in D.C. as part of an education program and sightseeing tour. Thune says these types of visits take time out of his busy schedule, but he likes doing it.
As you can tell, we typically, any given day, particularly certain times of the year, have just tons of groups from South Dakota in, so we're sometimes every 15 minutes or so.
At 11:30, we got a chance to sit down with Thune and ask him some questions about his new role as the Senate Majority Whip.
Well, the whip is you want to work with the leader and the leadership team to move your agenda. And so on any given day, it's taking whatever we're putting on the floor, whether it's legislation, nominations. We've done a lot of judicial nominations. That's been a big sort of, I think, legacy issue for the Republican Senate. But it's trying to get the vote. I mean, it's basically trying to win the vote, and sometimes that can be easy. Sometimes you have big bipartisan majorities for certain bills or nominations, and then sometimes it's a heavy lift.
I asked the senator about President Trump.
I get a chance, obviously, to work with him quite a bit, and he's doing a lot of the right things. I mean, I believe in his agenda when it comes to judges. The economy is in a great place. I mean, 50-year lows when it comes to unemployment, wages are up, growth's up, and national security, for the most part, I think he's doing the right things to keep America safe in what is a very dangerous world. So a lot of policy stuff I agree with him on.
But he doesn't always agree with the way the president goes about handling certain issues.
His use of social media creates a lot of interesting distractions for us. We spend a lot of time up here answering questions from the media about whatever the president's latest tweet was. So I'd like to see him dial that down. I've said that before, but he's the president. And I always tell people, and in South Dakota, it's very divided on him. They love him or they hate him, and there isn't a lot in between. And when people come up to me who don't like him and say, how can you work with this guy? I just tell them, look, 62% of the people in South Dakota voted for him. And my job is to work with the president where I can. And I think there are a lot of the things that he's doing that are the right things for South Dakota.
Speaking of the presidency, because his name has been brought up numerous times in the past, I asked Thune if he'll ever run for president.
Don't anticipate that happening. I respect the people who want to run. It's a heavy commitment, and obviously these days takes an enormous amount of money. And but no, I got my work cut out for me here, and I think I have a voice for the people of South Dakota. And ultimately, for me at least, that's kind of, in the end, how you want to be evaluated, is did you do a good job representing your state? And so I want to keep doing the best I can here.
Like the president, Thune has a lot of security with him every day while here in Washington and in South Dakota, which he says takes some getting used to because he wants to be accessible when meeting with constituents. When Senator Thune is here in the Capitol, he doesn't have to walk far to get to his office. That's because the whip has an office in the Capitol building not far from the Senate chambers.
It's an ornate office. It's been here since basically the Civil War, and a lot of interesting occupants over the years.
Like John F. Kennedy, who had asked the leadership for a room near the Senate chambers so he could fulfill his Senate duties while running for president. Thune says his two offices in Washington allow him to work more efficiently in a short amount of time.
I'm usually busy, usually here in the office until 8 or 9 o'clock at night, and then usually take stuff home with me to work on when I get home. So, but that's kind of what I've signed up for, and actually it works for me because my wife and family are back in South Dakota, so when I'm here, I just try and make the most of it and get as much done as I can in the day.
Days that he says are always dedicated to the people in his home state.
What we do here is all about them, and I don't forget that, and hopefully they don't either.
To learn more about the position of the whip and its history, go to KELOLAND.com, original section, where we have an interactive story about it. Up next, we sit down with Senator Mike Rounds and Congressman Dusty Johnson. Stay with us. Inside KELOLAND, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. Trade has become a hot topic in South Dakota. Farmers and ranchers have suffered great losses due to the ongoing trade disputes. The ongoing trade talks are also a top priority for South Dakota's Congressional delegation, including the man who read the entire farm bill, Congressman Dusty Johnson. From the farm fields of South Dakota to our nation's capital, trade is all the talk.
That is our top legislative priority here in the South Dakota Congressional office.
Congressman Dusty Johnson says he supports the president's goal of strengthening our trade deals to make certain America is on a level playing field. The president has already brokered deals with Canada and Mexico called the USMCA trade agreement, but Congress still needs to approve it.
Some people act like this is just sort of NAFTA 2.0. It is much, much bigger than deal than that. NAFTA was a good trade deal, but it was 25 years old. USMCA is quite a little bit better. How much is this value? How much is this difference worth? That's 176,000 new jobs for America and $68 billion of new GDP growth. That is a massive deal.
But the USMCA trade agreement is being held up right now, awaiting action in the House of Representatives, which is controlled by the Democrats.
We have got to have Speaker Pelosi put that on the floor, and we have to have Congress ratify it this fall.
Johnson says the bigger deal that needs to be worked out is a trade agreement with China.
We've had the president's back. We understand what he's trying to do. He's strategically taking the right approach. We've got to keep pressure on the Chinese to make sure that we get a deal that's going to work.
Democrats say that the proposed U.S.-Mexico-Canada agreement must be reopened to add tougher enforcement provisions, something the administration says is unnecessary. Now, to help alleviate some of the pain producers are feeling due to the ongoing trade disputes, the U.S. Department of Ag released a new round of financial assistance, $16 billion, for farmers and producers called the Market Facilitation Program. To learn more about that and how to apply for assistance, we've included a link under this story at KELOLAND.com. Well, the 2018 Farm Bill established the guidelines for people to begin growing industrial hemp. But it's still a topic of discussion in Washington, D.C., where lawmakers held a hearing last week. Congressman Dusty Johnson, who is on the House Ag Committee, sat in on that hearing. He says Congress still needs to make sure that the USDA is providing the regulations so farmers can proceed because he believes it could have market value.
But when you look at all of the different ways that we need to provide farmers options, flexibility, freedom, hemp could certainly be a big part of that answer long term.
A bill in the South Dakota legislature legalizing industrial hemp passed the legislature by 2/3 vote, but it was vetoed by Governor Nome, who said that it would make it more difficult for law enforcement. The B-21 bomber is a long-range stealth bomber for the United States Air Force, capable of delivering conventional and thermonuclear weapons. Ellsworth Air Force Base is slated to be the first base in the country to have the B-21s. Senator Mike Rounds sits on the Armed Services Committee. He says that the B-21 is the next-generation bomber that the U.S. needs in order to protect itself from other countries, but mostly China.
They are a real long-term threat to the United States. And until such time as we have an agreement that we can have confidence in, that we can live side by side. We have to be in a position to assure our own security, and that means being strong enough to make sure that China decides it's not in their best interest to attack us.
Not only will Ellsworth Air Force Base have the B-21s once they are out of production, it'll also be a training site for B-21 pilots. If you'd like to watch the entire interview with Rounds about the B-21 and its future at Ellsworth, log on to this story at KELOLAND.com. Now, along with what's at hand in Washington, my conversation with Senator Rounds also touched on a personal note, the health of his wife, Jeanne. Jeanne Rounds has completed her second round of chemotherapy at the Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. She was diagnosed back in May with a tumor near her sciatic nerve, but according to her husband, she's already showing signs of improvement. Jeanne Rounds will likely have to undergo more treatments for her tumor.
Back there, but she's got
We sat down with Senator Mike Rounds in his Washington, D.C. office to ask him how his wife is doing.
I've been with her during her cancer treatments. She has a sarcoma, which is a very challenging type of cancer. It's 1 in 100. But our doctors in South Dakota had referred us to Mayo. We got to Mayo, and they've taken charge. She's gone through 2 series of treatments already with chemo. She's handled them well. We believe that it's already made a difference in the size of the tumor that had been discovered to begin with. So we think we're on the right path.
But Rounds knows Jeanne has a long way to go based on her prognosis and chemotherapy treatments.
And if she tolerates them well, and if we see an improvement after the second one, and we're convinced right now they will, then they'd like to try probably a third one. And then based on how well that goes, maybe even a couple more. But in the meantime, they've also told us to expect a radiation treatment as well after that.
Rounds feels grateful for all the support.
I can't share enough how appreciative we've been of all the outpouring of support by people in South Dakota and literally across the United States, giving offers of prayer and thoughts.
Rounds says he's had to make some minor adjustments to his workload while Jeanne is being treated.
Up here in Washington, my fellow members have covered for me when it's time for me to do my official duties in being in the chair here to oversee the Senate and so forth.
Rounds says he missed part of 1 week to be with his wife while Congress was in session, but he continues his work in D.C. while Jeanne continues to recover at their home in Fort Pierre, surrounded by family and friends. He's confident the treatments are working, and Jeanne will fight this with everything she has.
She's a South Dakota farm girl to begin with. She's handled this very, very well. Prayers have really helped.
Senator Rounds periodically shares updates on Jeanne on social media or via email to his constituents as she continues cancer treatment at the Mayo Clinic. Up next, the other familiar South Dakota faces that we caught up with while visiting the nation's capital. Stay with us. Inside KELOLAND, we'll be right back. From Frost Arena to the political arena, former SDSU basketball standout Katie Lingle is getting used to calling Washington, D.C. home. Lingle moved there 5 years ago and has been working for Senator John Thune as his press secretary. While we were in Washington, D.C., we caught up with the former Jackrabbit, who is now working hard for another team. As a former starter for the SDSU basketball team, Katie Lingle has gone from making headlines to now writing them for Senator John Thune as his press secretary.
I would say the majority of it is, writing, drafting press releases, and handling press inquiries.
Yeah.
and scheduling interviews. Yep.
She was instrumental in lining up this interview for us with the senator last week. Lingle says she generally works until 6 o'clock at night, but sometimes it can get later, working for the majority whip. Working in D.C. is a lot different than growing up in South Dakota. She says she sees a lot of famous people.
Oh yeah, every single day. There's a lot of different folks that come through the office. I mean, I obviously think I have the best boss, but you know, you see different senators that maybe you look up to or admire. And then there's also just different celebrities that come through that advocate for things. So yeah, you definitely do get starstruck.
Even though work consumes most of her day, Lingle still finds time to hit the gym.
There are several different folks in the office that have a track record playing basketball. A couple who have played in college, so we formed a basketball team out here, and we play in a pretty competitive league. We took the summer off just because, you know, we were getting a little hyped up, but yeah, I play pretty much every week.
It's said in the game of basketball, the only shots you're guaranteed to miss are the ones you don't take. The same can be said for the game of life.
Yeah, it's just a privilege and an honor to serve the people of South Dakota, but especially working for Senator Thune because he's the best boss on Capitol Hill, and I just feel extremely lucky every single day to get to work for him.
Lingle lives about a half mile from the Capitol and walks to work every morning. She says that she gets back to South Dakota about every 3 months. Well, there are thousands of career fields to consider, but every once in a while you run into somebody who just seems destined to be a politician. I met up with one such young man while in D.C. whose name is no stranger to politics. You may not recognize his face, but his name will definitely ring a bell.
I didn't know either of the people that I'm named after.
He's named after his grandfather and great-grandfather, George S. Mickelson and George T. Mickelson. Both served as governor for South Dakota. Sadly, George S. Mickelson died along with 7 others in a plane crash in Iowa back in 1993 while on a business trip to Chicago. The younger Mickelson never got a chance to meet his grandfather, but has heard stories.
Just kind of all the good that he did for our state, especially, I mean, being the railroad and the bike trail named after him. There was a lot of good things that he did and brought to our state.
The 20-year-old Mickelson, who grew up in Sioux Falls and enjoyed playing sports and pheasant hunting as a child, is majoring in finance at Creighton University. He's now interning in Washington, D.C. for Congressman Dusty Johnson and is reluctant to say whether or not he'll run for office one day, too.
You know, being out here in D.C. has kind of opened my eyes to what politics truly is, and it definitely has kind of piqued an interest of mine, so it could be in my future.
A future so bright, his parents gave him a little friendly advice.
What advice? Don't screw up our family name. I'm just kidding. What advice? Take advantage of every opportunity that I've been given, and so I'm trying to do my best.
Mickelson interned earlier this summer for Senator John Thune. Well, up next, we are going to take a quick break and shift gears. A preview of a county fair near and dear to my heart. Stay with us inside KELOLAND. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Inside KELOLAND. Well, tomorrow is the start of the oldest county fair in South Dakota, the Turner County Fair. And joining us now is the Fair Board President and KELOLAND producer, Darcy Anderson.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for being on set with us.
Thank you.
All right, tell us about the Turner County Fair. We say it's the oldest county fair in South Dakota. How long has it been going?
I think it's been going about 138 years. 138 years. It's incredible.
Wow.
It's just an amazing thing. It's a free parking, free gate fair. Family friendly, and I think that's what just keeps drawing people back every year.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about some of the grandstand performances that are going to be happening.
Okay, so we're a little different. We don't have concerts. We have more races. Monday night we have bulls, broncos, barrels. We still have tickets for that. Tuesday night is enduro races. Wednesday night is the figure eights, and Thursday we round out the show with the demolition derby. That is sold out.
I believe it.
But we do still have pit passes, so if you're 16 or older, you can get back into the pits.
Okay, yeah, the Demo Derby is one of those pinnacle events that everybody likes to take part in.
That is right. Everybody loves it. You know, those tickets go on a sale June 1st, midnight, and it's amazing how many people are up at midnight buying those tickets and how many we've sold by the next morning when we log in. It's incredible.
You know, as I walk around, because I grew up in Parker and the Turner County Fair was part of my childhood, and as I walk around, people in Sioux Falls always look forward to the Turner County Fair. Why is that, do you think?
I think, you know, like I said, it's okay, so it's a free gate. You don't have to pay anything to get in. You save your money, you can go, then that money that you save from having to get into the gate, you can go buy your food. There's a lot of just fun atmosphere, family friendly. It's a dry fair. I think that makes a huge difference. You're not going to have that maybe as wild a crowd going on. And of course, if you're a person that needs to have your alcohol, you know, go to Main Street. There's some establishments up there. You can have your drink. We have trams running from Main Street. They'll bring you up to the fair and then you can go back. But if you get too rowdy at the fair, we're sending you home. So I think that's a big thing. We're family friendly. We're driven on being that. And I think that's really what draws people in. We have the carnival. We have the 4-H exhibits. We have the animals. It's just all that fun, great things. I do want to mention quick, we have free parking, which is a big thing. This year there is a private business that's right next to the fairgrounds. They are going to be roping things off and have paid parking. So just so you know, there's going to be a little section that is paid, but then there is mostly free parking, and we have trams to take you around.
Yeah, we're looking at a graphic right here. That's the paid parking area,
that is
right
the paid
there
parking.
on the north side of the fairgrounds.
Yep, right.
And I think we have another graphic that shows the paid parking.
And that's the tram route. What's in blue is in the tram route, and so you can just park. You know, sometimes people are even parking all the way out at the football field, but then we have trams that are going to run. They're going to bring you in. They'll bring you up into the fairgrounds. We try to get everybody back to their cars about 10:30 at night. We'll try our hardest to keep a tram at least one tram going later if people are still stragglers. So everybody still has a way to get back to their car.
And that's nice. That way you can park wherever you really want. Just get close to wherever that tram's running.
Exactly. And I say, you know, come early. That way you can get a nice close parking spot and just spend the day at the fair. Especially, you know, we have a lot of fantastic food booths. So that way you can pace yourself a lot better. We also have free entertainment down at Heritage Park. So there's just various musical acts going on there. And you can see the 4-H exhibits, and it just, you know, come and enjoy the fair. I know one of our big things this year, it's been so wet. You know, so that's a big hit on farmers, everybody in the business that rely on Mother Nature. So maybe your funding is going to be a little bit shorter this year, but don't make that something that's going to hold you back from the fair. I want you to still come out, still enjoy it, talk with people, sit and visit, have that be your time just to meet with people. It's a wonderful fair. It's a wonderful event. We still have a lot of tickets still for our grandstand events, and it runs only Monday through Thursday. It's only 4 days, 4 best days of summer. So managers out there, your people are going to be coming in saying they need to leave early to go to the fair. Sorry, you have a heads up, but you know, why don't you just come on down too?
Quick little story.
Yes.
When I was growing up in Parker, would go down there and try to get a job at the fair so I could make some money for the fair, and I helped set up the fairs for the merry-go-round one year.
Oh my goodness, that's awesome.
It was a very greasy job, let me tell you. I think we started at like 4 o'clock in the afternoon and we finished at around midnight.
That is so awesome. And I like everybody has fun stories. And do you have any other stories you'd like to share?
Oh, I do,
memories?
but we don't have time. I don't have time. Okay, Darcy, thanks so much for being on Inside KELOLAND. And go to the Turner County Fair, best county fair in South Dakota. Well, you can find out more about today's topics online at KELOLAND.com. Just click on the Inside KELOLAND section. Be sure to join us every Sunday following the 10 o'clock news right here on KELOLAND TV. That's all the time we have for today. Be sure to join us again next week for more on what's going on inside KELOLAND. I'm Don Jorgensen. Thanks for watching.